hip hop social crowd. Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome back in. It is the Rob and Stu show. A big day. This is a big day for me and Rob. We've been talking about this. We've been talking college football. We talk, baseball, all this stuff. Our real passion is the ponies, and by God, we're lucky enough to have friends that are, I don't know, Rob, what'd you call it? Like of some repute,
Legend.
Legends coming up. Our friend Mike Maloney, he's going to be going over the Pegasus. He's, we bask at his altar. But leading us off, we got a guy who knows David Aragona. That's big time. That's big time. That's big time. He is the head he's the face that runs the place over at Timeform US. He's a beautiful baby. He's just a phenomenal friend to me personally. The wonderful Craig F word Milkowski. F word is, it's ubiquitous, but that's your middle name. That's what your friends
let the man talk. Christ.
Guy, well, I just want to give him a proper introduction, Madon.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, you said that horse racing's your guy's true passion. That may be true most of the year, but I know damn well that Rob's right now is the Philadelphia Eagles.
This is true.
Oh yeah. It's this doesn't happen very often, so we're a little nervous. We're happy, but we're a little nervous. So we'll see. I tried to put my tickets up online for sale the other day for $5,000 a piece. I haven't gotten any bites, but if it does, I'll maybe think of claiming something at Gulfstream if that comes true.
Craig's always on the hunt for a nice little trip. He is what we call unburdened by small children. So he's got his life back. Congratulations.
Yeah. Let me tell you my one story real quick about going to the vet.
God.
When I was stationed at McGuire in New Jersey as a New York Giants fan, me and a friend of mine decided we were going to go to a Monday night football game. And it was very cold. We got tickets through the MWR on the base. I know you know what that is, Stu. So, I'm not an idiot.
You ain't getting tickets through MWR anymore, brother. I'll let you know that.
Yeah. So for the most part, I'm not too dumb. And I said, I'm not wearing any Giants gear to a Monday night football game in Philadelphia. So I just go wearing normal clothes, and it didn't matter because I wasn't wearing Eagles gear. So I basically got harassed for 3 hours. It was a horrible game. I want to say that the Eagles might have run the kickoff back, and that was about as close as it ever got. Jim McMahon was quarterbacking the Eagles. So,
oh my God. That was wild.
Yeah, that's how long ago it was. But some no-name, nobody was quarterbacking the Giants at the time. And it was basically one of the worst experiences of my life, as I just got abused for probably the whole 3 hours because I stuck it out to the end.
The vet, like my dad took me there as a kid. That was a special place. That place was insane. The link is very different. The link is there's security everywhere. Now, I will say, when you go out in the parking lot, that's no man's land. You want to tailgate out there?
Hey, Rob, I love how you go, yeah, the link's different. There's security.
Well, I'll tell you what, my wife's cousin came with us Saturday, and he was decked out in all his Giants gear. He's a diehard Giant fan. So we had one issue behind us, one guy, but I've had my seats there for 10 years. So I went up and politely talked to the guy, and I was like, listen, just don't. So then my wife found another seat right behind us, and then I had him stand there with me, very minimal because the game, the Eagles were dominating. I'm not going to say if the Giants would have won, it probably could have got a little nasty, but, he didn't have any issues. So it's a little bit, it's a little bit softer, I'd say, than the vet, but listen, they're crazy people. I'm not going to say they're not. You see the videos after the games on Twitter. It's an insane fan base. It's a city that's insane about football, and no other sport compares in Philadelphia. All anybody cares about is the Eagles. They're number one.
Yeah, it's
Some
a
would
horse
say
racing
very
version.
similar to the Orioles. Some would
Yeah,
say.
or I was going to say it's the horse racing version of Aqueduct.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's a great. Okay, Craig
I
Milkowski.
actually drove past Aqueduct today. I was out in New York for work, and I was just like, God, driving past there. There's a lot of rumors that they're not going to have the racing in a couple of years there. Everything's going to move to Belmont, but it's on its last limb, Aqueduct. Woof.
Question: where is the salt of the earth going to go if they close Aqueduct?
Oh, I don't know. The OTBs are shut in New York, so they have to go to Belmont, or a lot of the Staten Island people, they actually go to Bayonne now in New Jersey. They go right over the bridge. They put an OTB over there, but I don't know.
Maybe
those New York
Freehold?
City OTBs, they were legendary.
Freehold.
That's pretty far away.
Well, it's the capital of the salt of the earth. I mean, that's where you're going to find it. Jesus's people.
I spent way too many days at Freehold in my 10 years at McGuire Air Force Base.
Oh yeah,
some people are having 3-year-old birthday parties at Freehold.
Garden State too. Did you go to Garden State?
Garden State, Atlantic City. Garden State maybe even more than Freehold. Freehold was a little closer. I will say there were times I changed out of my uniform in the parking lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And talking to salt of the earth, let's start with the Grade 3 Pegasus Philly Mare and Turf Race 11. Now, Craig, just as a preface, we're just going to talk race 11 and 12, but you and David Aragona, another great friend to this show, and myself, you guys are going over the whole Pick 5 sequence. Where can people get that? And then by all means, start with the race.
Yeah, the easiest place to find us is the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. All the videos are there. I mean, if for some unknown reason people wanted to watch other handicappers besides David and myself, you can find like Mike Beer. No, I'm just kidding. Mike Beer's great. Dave, Dan
Illman.
who Dan, I'm drawing a blank there. Dan Illman is great. I actually do watch those guys, do a good job, but me and David do preview videos. Our 2 weekly podcasts are up there. So that's the easiest place, Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. As for the race, it's a Grade 3, I guess, is what this is these days, even though they offer a $500,000 purse. It just comes a little too early in the season, I think, to get the quality. But I think this whole stake sequence, what it lacks in star power, it makes up for in good, deep competitive racing.
Yeah.
And this is one that I really actually am look forward to betting. I said on our podcast that I don't even know if I'll play the Pick 5. It's so deep and contentious. And I'm not a guy that wants to spend $500 on a Pick 5. I like to play, $50, $100 and try to cash big. But I will be playing these races vertically for sure, because I think they're all pretty good. And this one in particular, because I don't care for either one of the 2 favorites in here. Delika is a horse who I don't really trust her. I think there's some other speed in here. Most of her big wins have come over that goofy race turf course at Churchill last year. She doesn't win outside of Kentucky, and she's just the second choice on the morning line. And then the favorite is the Chad Brown horse, Shanti Sarah, who just was terrible last time off a long layoff. She had a really good 3-year-old season, but has only run basically twice, and I think almost a year and a half now, maybe going up on 2 years. And I just think there's some others to take a swing with. And the one I'm really going to focus on is Queen Goddess, the 6th horse for Mike McCarthy. I generally don't like these California turf horses when they ship. I think they're usually a little bit inferior, but this one's the exception. I actually think she is pretty darn good.
You get Saez with the speed too. I always like that. He's always excellent on speed horses, getting them to the front.
Yeah, he is. And she doesn't necessarily have to have the lead. The other speeds to her inside and the 1 and 2. So she has that tactical speed where if she has to sit second pressing, I'm okay with that. What I don't want for a horse like her is to be inside and have better speed outside. But I think she's fine. Speed figure, she fits well. And the Gulfstream Turf Gulfstream Park turf course is not exactly Belmont Park or Keeneland where you can make a big late run. It's just one that's generally dominated by horses on or near the front end. So she's one I'm really interested in Saturday.
You're right about that. How many countless times have you seen on the turf over there, a 25 or 30 to 1 shot gets loose and there's just no catching them? I mean, all the time on the turf over there that happens. What was your thoughts on Artie's Princess from the rail? I always think that Zaffy has decent numbers stretching horses out. Like you said, the speed goes from synthetic to turf. Did you have any thoughts on Artie's Princess?
I mean, she doesn't have a lot of turf background to go. And unlike a lot of people, I am not really a big fan of just assuming synthetic horses are going to handle the turf. I think it's kind of a 50-50. Sometimes I like dirt more. And, it's kind of that cross surface. And for me, I just don't think she's good enough to beat some of the horses in here. It's a pretty big jump up. Saffie Joseph has a whole bunch of horses in this late pick 5. And I almost wonder if he wasn't doing some favors to the racing office, just getting some of these field sizes up, because he does have some contenders, but some look overmatched. And I think this one will definitely have an impact on the race because of her early speed. I just don't see her being of the quality to beat some of the others.
Even sometimes these owners on big days, they want their horses out there. They kind of want to have their table in the clubhouse. They don't care if they're 90 to 1. They just want to have their horse racing,
Yep,
Rob,
no doubt.
Rob, I'll bring up on Artie's Princess too. If you look up the dam statistics, it spits a lot. There's a lot of synthetic runners coming out of that dam.
Mm-hmm.
So it just may be one of those things where, and I kind of tend to agree with you, Craig. I mean, I used to hear that all the time. Well, if they love synth, they'll love turf, and I guess somebody smart came up with that at some point, but I've said some smart things before, but I'm pretty dumb.
Yeah, the thing in the beginning was most people, when synthetic first came out, they assumed it was going to be like dirt, and it turned out it's really nothing like dirt. But it's also nothing like turf. It's really its own surface. Some horses go back and forth between them fine. Some prefer 1, some 2, some 3. You just got to look at them all individually. And with Artie's Princess, we're talking about the surface. It's also a distance thing. It's not exactly like she's a 2-turn horse. She's basically been sprinting her entire career. So it's a pretty ambitious spot to try 2 new things.
Craig, I'll be honest.
It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see, like you said, too, the speed and the way that sets up in the race. Does somebody get free on the front end? Do we get somebody closing? Because it doesn't look like there's a ton of speed signed on. So I think you make a great point with Saez getting up aboard there for McCarthy.
Hey, Craig, I gotta be honest with you, Queen Goddess. That's where I fell as well. I'd ask you about Lady Rockstar. I bet this one over the summer. It's a good horse. I'm a little concerned that it's drawn towards the outside and it might just fall a little bit too far back or get shuffled. I could see that kind of trip, but you look at this one, and juxtapose it with the rest of the crowd. I mean, this is a, grade 3 horse, borderline grade 2 horse. And I don't know that there's many in there. And I think the pace, if you want a closer, this might be the one you want.
Yeah, I'm fine with her. My top pick would be Queen Goddess, but I'm also a guy that plays vertical bets. And when I toss the favorites like I'm doing in this race, I'm certainly going to spread a little bit. And Lady Rockstar would definitely be my second choice. I think she ran pretty darn well last time. She didn't get a very good ride from Irad Ortiz that day. He's a guy who on the turf is generally going to give you a good ride, but she was basically wide the whole way around. And I thought she ran really well to be second that day. So she's one I'll be using in exactas with Queen Goddess, and also Waka Naka, the Bill Mott trained horse, trying to pick up the pieces. So yeah, the 6 would be my main bet, but I'd also be using her with the 3 and the 7.
All right, over to race 12.
Yeah, let's move over to race 12. Race 12, what is it, Rob?
This is the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. $1 million. This is a great race, actually. I thought it came up as a great betting race. I think Witt's really taken to the turf, which was kind of interesting. I thought when they put him on there in the summertime, I was like, maybe a desperation move. Maybe he's got bad feet, something like that. But he's really taken to the turf. It's kind of been wild to see him, reassert himself here with the turf horses after he looked like he was on the Derby Trail for a while. I really love a long shot in here. I like Who's the Star, the Marcassi horse. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Woodbine shippers coming to Gulfstream. I think they fare maybe a little bit better on the grass. I don't really have any stats to back that up, but it just seems like every time I bet the Woodbine horses on the dirt, they're terrible at Gulfstream. I kind of like the way this horse is coming into the race. I think he's really hit his stride here in his 5-year-old season. I don't know what kind of a setup he's going to get, how it's going to work, but I really like Who's the Star at 20-1.
Yeah, he's a horse who's won 5 out of 6 since he moved off of dirt, some on turf, some on synthetic. One thing I will never do as a gambler is try to talk anybody off a 20-1 shot. I'm the kind of guy that thinks if you like a 20-1 shot, don't care what anybody else says, go to the windows, because you don't have to be right very often to make a killing. And I'm going to look at a different longer price in this field. And it's not that I dislike the favorites like I did in the other race so much. I think they certainly have a chance. Horses like Ivar and City Man. I worry that they drew outside post positions, which isn't ideal in this spot. The other one coming out of the Breeders' Cup is actually the 5-year-old mare, Lady Spite Spear, who she's going to take some money off that big third in the filly and mare turf. But the horse that interests me the most is more to the inside, and that's a Tone, the 3-horse. He's just a horse who, the more I look at it, and in Timeform US, we have the Timeform US pace projector, and he is predicted to be up front on a lone lead. And when I look at the horses predicted to be in behind them, they're not even really speed horses. Horses like the 5 One More Bid, who I don't know that he's ever led a race in his life. Lady Spate Spear is then shown third behind him, and she's one who has some tactical speed. She's led a few races at Woodbine, but those are all like races with very little pace and very slow fraction. So this is a race when I get an informed horse like a Tone come in who looks to have an easy lead on a pace that probably won't be much on a course that favors speed. I'm going to go in pretty heavy on him.
Let me ask you a question. Does it factor in? Obviously, it probably does to your handicapping. He runs on Lasix last time. Now they take the Lasix off. He was successful with it 2 back at Kentucky Downs. He finished finished second when they took the Lasix off. Does that factor into your handicapping on this kind of day or not really?
He's run fine without Lasix before, run similar speed figures. So it doesn't, unless it's just blatant. Handicapping's tough enough. I'm for the most part going to assume that if trainers are sending their horses out without Lasix, that they have a pretty good idea that they can run without it. Because we've seen plenty of stakes horses that don't show up in these spots, particularly for that reason. So it's one of those, you never know when a horse maybe is going to bleed a little and not take to it. But this game's tough enough. I don't want to add further complications to it.
You got that right. And I'll tell you, Maker's horses to me, in the past week have been running better. Like to me, they started out a little bit cold. And then I think in the last week, that's always a thing to me going into big days, what Barnes are, you see it all the time at these boutique meets, these meets that guy's 0.4, especially these big days. He just seems like his barn's starting to get hot.
Yeah, and I don't want to act like the favorites have no chance in here. City Man is just in great form for a 6-year-old. I would have liked him a lot more had he drawn that inside post, but just being outside, especially with his running style, he's a horse who likes to be up close to the pace. And that's going to be pretty tough from out there. For him to get that kind of position, he's going to have to go pretty quick, outrun several of the horses to his inside. And I think that might take a toll late. He's run fine at 1 1/8 before, but I think 1 1/8 is probably his limit. So when you add in the extra disadvantage of that post, I'm going to be against him a little bit at a short price. Of the favorites, I'd probably take Ivar as the other one, just because he has that more of a late closing running style where the post probably won't affect him. He's just going to drop over and hope to get as close to the rail as he can and make that bait run. So I'd prefer those two, but it wouldn't shock me if either of them won, because they're both really good horses in good form.
Yeah, this is a really nice betting race. It's not like you said, you hit the nail on the head earlier with, it's not that it's a star-studded group, any of these big races, but I think there's some really good wagering things. I think as a gambler, I think you get more excited for that than what we saw all over the summer. Not to bash Saratoga, but I mean, God, some of those stakes races, they were tough with 1 to 2 shots and 5-horse fields. I mean, this is kind of nice that they're full fields and good betting races, so.
Yeah, it's the thing. I mean, a lot of people were complaining about the Pegasus this year and no real stars in it. And I mean, I guess Cyberknife is a little bit of a star, but he's going to the breeding shed. But we've seen the races where we have horses like Arrogant and Gunrunner. And yeah, they're fun if you're just a fan of the sport that wants to see great horses. But would they all pay to combine $450 or something like that? I mean, for me, great. I mean, I like the sport from both angles. I am a fan. I love the horses themselves, but I also like to have a good wager, and it's hard to get a good wager in those races. So I'm never going to complain about grade 1 races where we have big fields, particularly like this one and the Pegasus right after it.
Yeah, and I mean, horse racing Twitter just loves everything, so nobody's going to complain. I mean, you're never going to, you'll never.
No, it's the nicest, happiest group of people you can find out on Twitter. I mean, that's pretty clear. Swift hitters, probably first and foremost. I mean, you talk about somebody who's just happy all the time. Shout out Swifty. Love you, Justin. Question. Hurricane Dream, the number 4, 15 to 1. I kind of looked at this race and I don't know where to go. I kind of side with you, Craig. Like, all these races in and of themselves, I probably wouldn't want to do. I'm a pick 3, pick 4 guy. Like, I might take a small stab with a play. That's normally what my plays run through. But I'm actually really much more inclined to play the verticals. And I kind of want to key the number 4 here, Hurricane Dream, a horse that has consistently in grade 2, group 2 stakes at Longchamp, run and hit inside the number, and that's a pretty difficult bar, and I'm not seeing any killers here. Frankie gets back on the horse. He's already ridden this one. It's coming over for Graham, and I don't know. It just, Team Valor divested from America purposely. And now they're bringing one back for, because they love the spot. I think there's a lot of stuff at play here. I
$1 million. That's what's at play.
$1 million is what at play. Jesus. Thank you. Secretariat winning is also on your card today. Thank you.
Boil some hot dogs, would you?
Yeah, this is a horse David, your buddy David Aragono, liked the bit, and I do too. He's fine. He's going to be a price. He's kind of a wild card here.
David liked this horse, Craig?
He did. I don't remember if he made him his top pick or not. You'll actually have to give the podcast
I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen, but just let David know. Maybe I'll text him. I'm going to bet my mortgage responsibly if he made it the top pick. Continue, sir.
Yeah, I don't. So, I mean, yeah, I've got no issues with this horse. We see grade 2, grade 3 types from Europe come over and win our grade 1s all the time. And while this is a grade 1, I'm not sure it's really grade 1 quality, like a race like the Breeders' Cup or something like that. It's more like, one of your weaker grade 1s. So there's no Colonel Liam's in here, or I can't remember some of the other horses that have won it. We've had some pretty good winners of this race. Domestic Spending, I think, maybe won this race once.
Annapolis, you're not getting anything crazy in this race,
right? But yeah, good betting contest all day. And just to your point, it's a very tough thing to hit the pick 5. I'm of the mindset I can play 5 races individually and hit one and make a nice profit, or I can play 5 races together and miss one and make nothing. So not that I don't ever play pick fives, because I do, but I still stick to mostly a vertical guy playing price horses.
Now,
I'm
Craig,
the same way myself.
is there any spot else on the card that you really thought of, might be interesting, might be worth a look?
Yeah, the 10th race in the Hooper is another race where I've got some real concerns with the favorite Miles D, and that always
Same.
triggers my radar. When I don't like the favorite, that's when I get really interested in the race. It's a horse coming off a long layoff. He probably doesn't want to go this short. He draws a bad post for the inside 1-turn mile, particularly for a horse like him who doesn't have a ton of early speed. So with all those questions, and if you look through the PPs in this race, there is just a ton of speed signed on in here. So I just can't help but think it's going to be a hot pace. And because of that, I really like the 2-horse Noble Drama, who won a race 2 back that looked very similar to this one, maybe not quite the same quality, but it just seems like he's in good form, is going to get a perfect setup, gets a good inside post for his running style. And I think he's one that could make some noise. Maybe he won't be good enough to win, but I will definitely be playing him in verticals in the first 2 or 3 positions.
I actually liked in the 10th. I kind of looked at endorsed and the very outside for Safi 12-volt man. Rob, what did you have in the 10th race?
I didn't have anything in the 10th race. I only had 2 spot plays. In the 8th race, the inside information, I kind of like obligatory. I thought she, I didn't think she got the best trip in the Breeders' Cup, in the Filly and Mare Breeders' Cup sprint way back that day. Thought she had some decent run late. She's 2 for 2 at Gulfstream. I love Bill Mott with mares, especially as they get older. They're, Royal Delta, you can go back with him. I just think he's really good with mares. I think she's going to be ready to run her best race. I like her workouts coming into this race. I didn't see the morning line price on her because I had to
7 to 5.
Yeah, just like an Eagles fan, give us a spot play at 7 to 5.
7 to 5. And
Craig,
second race,
I swear to God, this guy gives out yesterday. Iowa State money line against Kansas State. He goes, big play tonight. Iowa State money line minus 225.
Well, listen. I gave you a
225
shot. Listen, I gave out a couple of 21s I like, but 20 to 1 shots. Yeah. Also in the second race, a maiden race. I always like to look at Gulfstream at guys, how their maidens are running, their younger horses are running. I think sometimes these trainers, they'll point certain horses to this meet. I really like the way the Weaver barn's been going. I liked one on the turf there Sunday. I think it was Sunday. Horse race lights out, got a terrible trip. I like this Dark Vector from the rail in the second race for George Weaver. Javier's up. I think this horse has a shot at a price. I'm not sure what it is morning line. Like I said, that's not on here. But Dark Vector is a horse I like in the second race.
Yeah, this one's a little more redeeming for you. 8 to 1 on the morning line.
There you go.
Not quite 7 to 5. 7 to 5 spot plays. I call those picks for money.
Hey guys, I don't know. I kind of like this horse Songbird.
Gotta up the average. Gotta up the average.
Do you guys? This horse named Zenyatta. I don't know the morning line, but.
Hold on. Hey, if you look right behind me, you'll see Zenyatta in my picture.
Oh, there you go.
Everybody was Zenyatta. I guess Zenyatta.
I can't lie. I had a decent sized bet on Blame in that race at Churchill. So I was not to root her down, but I was rooting her down.
Yeah, I used to actually always try to beat Zenyatta, and it only took like 20 starts, but I finally did it.
Hey, Craig, we can't let you go without a football pick. Now, mind you, one of the gutter snipes you're talking to, you can be as honest and as transparent as you want to be. Who's playing in the Super Bowl?
All right. Well, Rob is probably going to hate this if he knows my reputation as one of the ultimate Twitter mushes, but I think the Eagles are a lock. I don't see any way. I don't see any way Brock Purdy, as great as his story is, I just have a hard time believing that he's going to be able to take this team all the way to the Super Bowl. That Eagles defense is for real. So I'm on the Eagles in that one. The other one's a bit more of a toss up, but I'm looking for more of a repeat of last year. I just think the Bengals kind of have Kansas City's number, and go Joe Burrow.
Yeah, the Bengals really look like, they haven't lost a game since I think Halloween. They really look like they just put it together in November, and it's just been on a run ever since. And I do think the Eagles can win, but they got to stop that San Francisco run game. That's the one weak spot in the Eagles defense. But you can run the ball on them. You can dink and dunk sometimes. Eagles don't have the best linebackers. They have a very good line, but their linebackers in space, they don't invest in it. I don't agree with it, but they just don't invest in linebackers with high picks anymore. And San Francisco does. So, I mean, but it's going to be a hell of a game.
Hey, Craig, next time you're on, and it'll be before baseball season, I'll give you that. You better get ready. We're going to do an over-under on the O's, and me and you are going to bet it together. We are going to bet it together because my team has opted out of baseball. So,
all right. Sounds good.
Go O's, go Birds. Craig, once again, you can find him at Timeform US Figs on Twitter. I got that right. I always, it's at Timeform US, but at Timeform US Figs. And also the DRF YouTube, him and our great friend David Aragona doing the Ward's work over there, also available on wherever you get your podcast, iTunes, Spotify, what have you. I find it great, drowning out information for small children. So thank you, Mazel Tov, for that. Craig, much love. I can't wait to talk to you again. On the flip side of this, me and Rob are talking to some guy named Mike Maloney. He wrote a book. We'll entertain him. All right, we made it to the big time right now because I'm happy to introduce, first time on YouTube with us, and certainly a long-standing friend of the Stucast, friend to the Rob and Stu show now, my compadre, my amigo, my gambling hero, spirit animal. That's just what he is. Live from Las Vegas, he is Big Papa Pump, Big Sexy Mike freaking Maloney. Mike, you look ebullient tonight, my friend. Lavish.
Thanks, Stu. Your standards may be a little low, though, my friend.
That's what my wife tells me. I'll tell you this, though. I challenge PTF to give you a Big Papa Pump intro, okay? And I'm gonna text him after this. Next time Mike's on, call him Big Papa Pump. He's Big Sexy, and that's what he goes by.
I think Mike's our first guest with hair. Usually it's just me.
Yeah, that's actually true too.
Two bald guys just yelling at each other.
Yeah,
only if you're looking at me from the front, Rob.
Mike Maloney, of course, goes without saying, author, Betting with an Edge. If you can find it, hoard it, sell it like gold. It's one of those, I think it's already gone down as one of those horse racing books that if you find it, you hold on to it, you keep it, you read it, you bookmark it. I think it goes without saying, you've just been around the block, and thank you again for coming on, because we're looking at this Pegasus, and me and Rob were talking earlier today, and I'll let you take it, Rob, with the first question. But I mean, it's not like any of these blow your socks away. So kind of a little at a loss here, Rob. I'll let you have the first question for Mr. Maloney.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of I don't want to say it's a lackluster, but I guess I am kind of saying that. Like, I think it's a decent feel, but I don't think it's anything when you go through it. You're thinking Pegasus. I mean, I understand they're trying to make this a big ordeal with charging, what are they charging to get in the Gulfstream? I think it's $125 a ticket or $100 a ticket. And, they're making it into a concert. I get it, but how did you feel about the race, just as far as the horses that are in it? Because me looking at it, going over the racing form the last 2 days, it's not really a like crazy talented race.
I agree with you, Rob. I thought the race came up a little soft for $3 million. You know, there's no superstar in here. I mean, Cyberknife's a nice horse, and he's the best horse in this field, but that's a tough post. Given he kind of likes to lay right off the pace, and given that 10 post, that's not an easy trip at Gulfstream at 1.8 miles.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he comes out of there, right? Because even in the race in Arkansas last year, he was really aggressive during that race. It always seems like if he gets too close, then he wants to be right on the lead. He gets aggressive. It's going to be interesting to see the way the trip he gets from out there. You know, I mean, I tend to be more of a sheets player on bigger days. I kind of like looking at the numbers. I mean, his numbers obviously are pretty good. But I don't know how you feel, but me going over to the race, I feel like there's a lot of early pace. I want to see if we're going to get a little bit of a speed duel here.
I agree. I think the pace is definitely going to be a solid or even maybe a fast pace. So, and I don't think that's really going to help Cyberknife, because he's not a deep closer. He's a horse that likes to use his speed. He has a kind of a high cruising speed, and he likes to get in the race and then grind it out. And that's going to be a little tough here, because I can't see any kind of soft pace scenario coming up in this race.
No, definitely not. And sometimes we're kind of disappointed. I mean, I shouldn't say disappointed, but I mean, especially in New York, like I like to bet a lot in New York racing. You get these races sometimes and you're like, oh, there's going to be all kinds of front end speed in here. And then they go 25, 51 to the half. And then you're like, you're sitting second or third, last on the wood, and you just know you're dead. I mean, before they even turn from home. So, it's going to be interesting if we get some speed. I know, because I watch Parks a lot, being a Jersey guy. My dad used to take me to Philly Park when I was a kid, so I watch it. Riding with Biden, I think it's kind of I don't think he has any chance to win. I think he has a really
He's your
chance
favorite
to mix
horse
it up
in the
early
race,
pace.
correct, Rob? Just one of those ones you bet the name on, correct, Rob?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I think he has a chance to really kind of to mess it up in there and throw a monkey wrench into the early pace there.
Yeah, and Art Collector's probably another horse that's his only shot is to mix it up early. So, it looks like I would totally agree that the pace has to be solid.
Mike, looking at these races, and I've heard, our friend Paul Matisse and Duke Matisse kind of talk about this a little bit. How do you approach it? Because I'm still like, I'm in, I'm out, I'm a weekend warrior. We don't always get the nice grade 1 on a weekend and different districts, but with the Lasix coming off, and some of these horses are coming off Lasix or haven't been on it for a while, so it's nothing new. How are you approaching that still at this point? I mean, we're a ways into it, but how do you approach the coming off Lasix or being off it for a while? What's your approach?
It's a problem, Stu, because it doesn't come into play as much in this race as it does in a lot of stakes races. But when you have horses switching on and off Lasix every other race, it's just another factor in a complicated game trying to handicap horse races. So it's not a huge deal in this race, I don't think, but in most stakes races today, it is, and they need to get that straightened out, because it's it just makes it hurts the form. Some horses won't show up without their Lasix. Some horses won't show up in certain temperature situations. If it's a hot, muggy day, they might stop without the Lasix. And the same horse, you give him a cooler day in the fall or something, he might run okay without the Lasix. So it's a huge factor that's hard to predict, that it destroys the form in the races, and makes it harder to handicap, and makes it harder to bet with confidence. So you mentioned Paul Matisse, who's a guy that I have tremendous respect for, one of the, if not the best handicapper in the country, one of the best. And I know he feels the same way, that it's just it's detrimental to betting horses. When you throw a factor in that's almost impossible to know ahead of time what's going to happen.
It's dangerous for the horses too. It's dangerous for the horses. It's something that really helps an animal. I mean, it's so ridiculous that they bow down to these people and got rid of it, because it's something that helps the horse during the race. I mean, it's really, like you said, not only for handicapping, for the horse itself, for the horseman. These guys put in all these time with these horses and the millions of dollars spent, and you get these races. Sometimes the horses stop midway through or in the stretch, and then you get them scoped after the races and they're bleeding or they've had other issues, and it's really hard. You're not lying. It's really a monkey wrench into the whole thing.
Mike, can you? We've kind of talked about the pace. We've kind of talked about some of the ancillary things to be cognizant of and how to approach it. How are you approaching this race from a perspective of, combining all this together and just looking at, like you kind of already alluded to, Cyberknife, maybe not the world's greatest 5-2 morning line shot ever.
Well, what I know from experience playing races at Gulfstream, this race is 1.1 miles, and Gulfstream is 1.1 miles dirt track. So you don't have a lot of runway before you hit that first turn when you come out of the gate. What that will do is, it just, unless the field really strings out, it makes it very tough. If you're 3 wide going or 4 wide going into that first turn, it makes it very hard to work out any kind of a ground saving trip. Everybody's trying to dive to the rail. Everybody's trying to save a little ground. And, betting 5-2 shots out of the 10 hole at that distance at Gulfstream, just, it's not a way to make money. It doesn't mean Cyberknife can't win this particular race, but it's in this situation, I feel like he's the best horse. But what my gambling experience has taught me is Cyberknife will be a horse I'll use, that I'll include in my exactas, trifectas, but it won't be the horse that I'll keep. The race, there's a lot of waters running in different directions in this race. I like races where most of the water's running in the same directions, where things are, multiple factors are pushing me to the same horse. That's not the way this race lays out. But it's a big race, and I'll make some kind of play in there. And when I look at the race, I see 3 horses that I can get interested in to some degree. Cyberknife, for one, just because I think he's the class of the race and probably the best horse, but at that price, he can't be the key. Proxy is another horse. He's drawn the rail here. He projects to get a good trip. He has Rosario as his jockey. He hadn't run in 60 days, but Stidham is pretty good with this move as trainer. I think the horse will probably be fit and ready to go. He hasn't ever raced at Gulfstream Park. That's another concern. But the things I like about Proxy are that, as Rob and I were discussing, I think the pace of the race is going to be solid. And if that's the case, that should play into Proxy's hands. He has a good finish. He gets a little disconnected from the race sometimes. I don't like that he drops back a little too far once in a while, but he always has a solid finish. So I think he's the horse I have the most confidence in to be in the trifecta somewhere. The other horse that grabs my attention a little bit is Defunded. Baffert's shipping him in from the West Coast. He looks like he might be the speed of the speed. And Gulfstream is a track when you're running on their main track, even in races where it looks like there's too much speed, sometimes the speed of the speed will exceed your expectations there. So I always try to protect myself against that. And to me, Defunded is the best of the pure speed horses. So those are the three horses that I'm going to focus on the most in the race.
Can I ask you a question about one that kind of drew my
Sure.
ire? And I get what you're saying about Proxy, but I think if you like Proxy, you may be tempted with the number 8 Get Her number, something Rob has never had to worry about. I'll tell you, if you go back and you look at the time form figures, shout out Craig Milkowski, more so shout out David Aragona, he's a G. Craig Milkowski, take him or leave him. But Get Her
Be
number.
nice to my man Craig. Now you know
I know. He's a ruffian, Mike. Pick better friends. But 4 straight slow paces back to back to back, and it's closed in. I mean, surely this race is the race. If you're ever gonna bet Get Her number, this is the race screaming for it. No,
he's a nice horse. I can't say that that he can't win. And I love Louis Saez. He's my boy. So I'm always looking to include him. I just I'm kind of looking at the projected trip that I'm thinking Get Her number is gonna work out, and that concerns me. I don't really see him dropping into a great spot, even with Louis. And a mile and an eighth is not something that Get Her number has done a lot. I think he's only tried it one time, and didn't hit the board that time. So I would have some concerns about Get Her number. I'm not saying not a horse to include, but tough for me to really get on board with. Another horse in there that might be worth going over is Skippy Longstocking. I think that's a horse that will that'll draw some play. And my opinion of him is he runs his best when he can get up on the pace, when he can really attend a pace, as he did in the West Virginia Derby, as he did in the Harlan's Holiday at grade 3 at Gulfstream last start. I don't think he can get that trip in here. I think there's too much speed, and I think he's going to be further back than he prefers. So that's a horse I may fade to some degree.
I'll tell you, Get Her number, I had a nice size win bet on at Aqueduct in that Cigar Mile. He looked like a winner to me around the turn. I said, man, I'm going to get this. He's going to go right by. I thought he hung on the money in that race. He got to the lead. I thought he just hung around. I think you make a great point with the distance. I just don't think the distance, he's good enough to go that long. To me, that was the perfect distance for him at a mile. I just think that's too much, too much to ask for him going. I kind of like a long shot in here. I like the outside horse O'Connor. I thought he raced good at Gulfstream his first start, won easy by 6. I thought last race, watching the replay, was down on the rail, and then Zayas kind of moved him back, moved him to the outside, made a little bit of a wide move, got a little tired. I think maybe first start off a 2-month layoff. I don't know if Zaffi had him all the way tuned up and ready to go. Like you said, Skippy Longstocking, race good. He's a 3-year-old turning 4. Maybe he's getting a little better, but like you said, he got the perfect trip that day. He got away with the speed on the front. The biggest thing I'm worried about with this horse, obviously, like you said, Gulfstream, that's a tight track too. Like you said, going to lose a lot of distance from the outside, but kind of like O'Connor. I like his sheet numbers. Like I said, second off the layoff. He's had some real nice drills before this race. I just think maybe he can sit the trip and, get there at a price a little bit if the other ones kill each other up front.
He definitely has upside. I'm when I see the 12 pole at that distance, I'm like a poker player that doesn't want to fill an inside straight. I don't mind the horse that much, but I try to avoid those posts, but that doesn't mean the horse can't run big.
No, you're right though. Especially on that, like you said, that track, that Gulfstream track really does, like you said, it really pertains to the speed. And don't be afraid if the horse is the speed of the speed, because you've seen it in this race before where these horses have gotten away, and they're good enough to bury them.
Yeah, the best speed is always dangerous at Gulfstream on the dirt. There's some days when it doesn't mean as much, but I played the races there today, Thursday. We're doing this, and speed wasn't as good as it can be some days, but a good inside attending the pace trip was still worth something. So I'm assuming it'll be that way Saturday. That we're just guessing at what the bias will be. Hell, we may look up Saturday and it may be all the horses on the outside may be dominating. So we'll have to change.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Well, it's
change
funny
direction.
that Tapeta, when they first started that Tapeta racing this year, it seemed to be all closers. Closers were coming from behind, and you would think obviously, Florida, you think fast track and everything. It was funny, but all closers were coming from behind on that.
Yeah, and it's amazing, those synthetic tracks that I've seen already just in the short time that they've used the Tapeta at Gulfstream. I've seen a lot of outside closing favoring days on it, but I've even seen inside speed days on it. So a lot of people assume that the synthetic tracks don't have a lot of bias, but Turfway's the same way. There are nights when the synthetic tracks will pick up a bias, and you have to be really alert. But it's worth it when you do find one, because I don't think many people expect that. I don't think many people play it that way even when the bias does exist.
No, 100%, and especially on like you're right, on the poly track. I think people throw that right aside. They don't even pay attention to that as far as a track bias on there. I mean, on the bigger days, especially in horse racing Twitter with all the experts, I mean, as soon as the first race goes, the track's designed for speed, or I know going to Saratoga all the time, everybody's always complaining after the first, it's too fast. You're not going to come from behind, or the front end's dead. I mean, that's just, I guess that's just all this.
I went to Saratoga every summer for 25 years, and we had a running joke. If you want to know what the bias is, just go to the men's restroom after the second race.
Yeah, you got that right. Oh my God, everybody in there complaining. I mean, I guess that's just horse racing.
I wish I could just hear the one-liners from Bud on a bad day. I mean, that would be your old man, I'm sure, he had him just snapping.
Yeah, he wasn't a big fan of jockeys for some reason. I could never exactly figure that out, but one of his lines someone had asked him, can this guy ride? And he'd say, he's one notch better than a loose horse.
I hope that still carries over to today. Some things you can't forget. One last question on this race, and I think it's pertinent from a wagering strategy, a gambling strategy. You mentioned at the jump off, Mike, that this is a race. You got multiple different streams. You don't have information going down one specific pipe. For the folks who are looking at playing this horizontally or vertically, what's the kind of advice that you can give? Just as far as, besides the obvious, bet responsibly. Don't bet, if you want to bet your mortgage, do so responsibly, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Rob, I think you're betting your child's 401k, but responsibly. So, I mean, it's okay if you just, but for real, like, what's the best advice you can give to folks jumping in and playing this card?
Well, I'll just lay out kind of the way I approach these things, and people can determine if they think it's worthwhile or not. But I look at horses differently when I'm looking at vertical and horizontal bets. To use examples from this race, Proxy to me is a lot more interesting as a vertical key than he would be as a horizontal key, because a horse that is in the back of the pack early and makes a huge run and maybe has to wait for room at the top of the lane and comes flying late and gets beat a length, he doesn't do you a bit of good in the horizontals. But that horse can make you a lot of money in the verticals. A horse like Defunded, if he were to shake loose on the turn and open up a couple of lengths, he's very likely to win, to hold on. He's a horse that I would be more interested in him in the horizontal pools, because if he doesn't make the lead, if he doesn't work out the right trip, if the pace is too hot, he might just fold, and he's not going to do you any good in the vertical pools. So that would be the thing I would emphasize to the players out there, that is, you have to fit the bet to the race in question. I always say it's like having a toolbox, and I'm going to look at the race, and the toolbox is full of all the things I've learned on how to wager over the years, and all the different wagers that are available to me. And I'm going to look at my opinion of the race, and then I'm going to go to the toolbox and figure out what bet is good for this job. I'm not going to decide, hey, I'm going to use a hammer, and then go, no matter what the job is, I'm pulling out the hammer, even if it's like hanging, that helmet on the wall behind you. I'd mess up. You'd have called the drywall man in after I left. So we don't want to do that.
See, that's smart. The approach I have is like a jackhammer. You just go to simulcast and you're just going around betting all the races. I got one more question for you. When there's a big day in racing like this, everybody's excited. There's big races. How do you go into the day as a gambler when you're going over the card? Are you going to play every race? You probably don't, but you pace yourself in the beginning, or is it a spot play day for you?
Yeah, I'll definitely not bet every race, but what I learned early through trial and error and busting out and making bad moves at the track and losing and being so frustrated with myself I couldn't hardly see straight when I left there, was that my tendency, and I think most people's tendency on big days, is you study the form 3 or 4 hours, and you see things you like, and you see opportunities, and you're so cranked up when the day starts that you get caught speeding. You do too much too early, and you get pulled over. And when you get pulled over for speeding, you've got like 20 or 30% of your day's wagering money left. You've already dug the hole for yourself by the time a lot of the races that you really like come up. One of the things I wrote in Betting with an Edge, and I like it. I think it's pretty sound advice, is a good horse player is gonna know more the last half of the card than the first half of the card. You're gonna know exactly how the track's playing. You're gonna know what human connections are on top of their game, what jockey's hot, what trainers' horses are all firing. You're going to know all those things. You're going to know them better the second half of the card. So why run in and put ourselves, limit what we can really do at the end of the card by overplaying the early part of the card? And I think that's a real common mistake that I see, when
I hate you for it though,
buddy.
Mike, because it's like I'm sitting there and I want to play the first few races just because I want the action, but then I have that sense in my mind, and I'm like,
You
just
come
hold
in, you're
off,
ready
but
to
I
sweep
wanna-
the
I
card.
wanna-
You're ready to sweep the cards, Stu. You're,
Yeah.
having the athletic background that you have.
Well, when you're a
dominating, and
Spartan
you
from
expect to
Michigan
dominate the
State,
card.
when you're a Spartan from Michigan State, Mike, we've talked about this. You know this. I mean, I haven't lost a horse race since June of 2017. So I mean, what do I know, right? Mike, are you going to be on any other shows? I know people ask you left and right. Your publicist gave me an earful today.
You know, I have cut back, Stu, and you and your friend PTF are about the only request. I did do a pod with Craig last year, but for he and David, and I totally.
Can you do that
would do
again,
that again.
please? Please, can you do? I know what you're talking about. Can you do that again?
No, I love
Please.
to do that. Those guys,
Okay.
I love those guys. They're both great
I'll talk to
handicappers.
Dave and Craig and be like, hey guys, save this for a nice little weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, where your friends need help.
PTF, I don't hang out with him for the handicapping. I just like to see what he's wearing that day.
Oh God. I mean, he took third place at the Colonel Mustard cosplay convention this year. Very exciting. Congratulate him next time.
That sounds like a Brooklyn thing.
Yeah, it's very much.
There's not much of that going on in Kentucky, Stu. I hate to tell you.
I'll tell you what, at least Brooklyn's better than New Jersey. Am I right, Rob?
Wow, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
Mike, the book is Betting with an Edge. PTF may have photocopied a few copies left, but if not, it is worthwhile to find it wherever you can. You're a mensch. You're such a beautiful baby. So I appreciate you. And with that, Rob, thank you. Mike, thank you. Craig Milkowski. Mike. Yeah, Craig Milkowski, thank you. And take care, brush your hair. We'll be back next week with a little college basketball action here on the Rob and Stu Show.
A hip hop the crowd. Yeah.